Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon to New Jersey Conservative Talk Radio show. We're always right, never left. We put God first and politics second. I'm your host, Chauncey Brown. We have an exciting show lined up for you today. We're blessed to have in the studio former mayoral candidate from Hamilton Township, truth seeker, truth speaker, David Henderson is in the studio. Also, we might have another special guest in the studio today, David Winkler, another truth seeker, truth speaker, former U.S. congressional candidate out of Hudson County, and also former New Jersey State Senate candidate from New Jersey. He might be appearing in the studio as well. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, Dave. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. Another beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day. I thank you for taking time out of your schedule to appear on my show. Let's jump right in. You know, the Republican Party now.
Let me stop you for a minute, John. It's an honor to be invited to be on your show, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Dave. You're a very good friend of mine, and it's always an honor and a blessing as well to have you on. We saw and witnessed the chaos of the three gubernatorial candidate races prior to the primary. We have a new head of New Jersey Republican Party, former U.S. senatorial candidate Bob Hugin. Personally, I can't see, after what happened before the primary, I don't see a Kumbaya moment in sight here with all these three factions coming together. Where do you think the Republican Party stands right now?
Well, when I look at the landscape of the Republican Party in New Jersey, the number one thing that strikes me, and it strikes me hard, is who's leading the party. We have a titular head in Bob Hugin, who was anointed not too long ago after only a few weeks ago after Jack Ciattarelli was successful in the primary, and Jack wanted Bob to be the chair way back when Doug Steinhardt stepped down to run for governor, and that didn't happen. Mike Lavery was able to come in and take over, fill a position temporarily that he had before, and then Jack, having won the primary, made it clear that he wanted Bob to be the chair. I don't really see anything changing much with Bob Hugin. I think Bob Hugin ran unopposed. I think a good number of county state representatives from the various counties voted for him because they think he's going to feather their beds on county campaigns with some money and some contributions. But let me go back to what I said first. I don't see any leadership. Who's the head of the Republican Party in New Jersey right now? I don't see who that is. Bob Hugin has not taken over the leadership role that some of us had hoped he would have, and frankly, I don't know if he's capable of doing it.
You know, you bring up some good points, and thank you for sharing that brief synopsis, because then it leads me into my next issue. We saw the chaos, the barbs, the attacks from the camps of all three camps, the side camp, the Rizzo camp, normally, and the Ciattarelli camp. I can't see a Kumbaya moment of all these three camps coming together and supporting Jack. I can't see that. Am I missing something in that?
Well, look, I think that the Singh people are certainly not supporting Jack. The things that I see in the conversations I have is they're not. And I think that some of the Rizzo people may be supporting him. I know Rizzo's been out to a couple of events with Jack, but there's no love lost between those groups either. Rizzo got into it because nobody was happy with Jack. And when Doug Steinhardt was forced to withdraw from the campaign for a number of reasons, the people that were supporting him tried to fill the void with Rizzo, and Rizzo was not, in my opinion, the campaigning candidate to make a dent into Ciattarelli. And I think that which will lead me into another one of the points that I wanted to make today, Chauncey. I think that a number of areas in Republican politics have become very parochial, and it sort of led to Jack Ciattarelli being endorsed by all 21 counties. You know, one of the things that irritated me the most was a number of the counties refused to even let Singh or Rizzo speak at their conventions. You know, I've always been a champion. I've always been a champion of the small D Democrat process. Anybody that's familiar with what happened in Hamilton Township and why I challenged the sitting mayor in a primary a couple years ago is because I was a champion of the small D Democrat process. Everybody's voice has to be heard, and when the Republican Party in New Jersey, yes.
Dave, if it's possible, I know that you're traveling. You're coming in broken up. If you can stop for a minute while you're talking, that would be great.
I will. As soon as I get a chance, I'll pull over.
Okay, all right, continue, because you're coming in. Yeah.
How are we now? Yeah, so, you know, I think, in my opinion, it seemed a couple of the, from my observation, a couple of the county conventions were
leaders?
Sort of slanted. It didn't allow Mr. Singh or Mr. Rizzo to even present themselves at their conventions. Look, I will say I loosely supported Singh for a good period of time, primarily because of that. I nominated Singh at the Mercer County convention just so that he could be heard, so his message could be out there. Look, I think Rizzo and Singh both had significantly positive points in their campaigns, and I'm disappointed that the victor, Jack Ciattarelli, has not embraced those positive points.
That leads me into my next issue when we talk about the Republican Party, and you're talking about not only the internal fighting, but also the power struggle that's transpiring within the Republican Party, and even not allowing Pastor Rizzo and her side to speak. That type of good old boy network still seems to be in play here in New Jersey. Another one of my issues is with the Republican Party in New Jersey is they want minorities to run. They want women, they want blacks, and they want Latinos to run for office. But the Republican Party does not fund these candidates. The Republican Party does not assist them. Go ahead.
You're absolutely correct, Chauncey. You hit on a very important point. But more importantly than the funding, they really, they stand up on the pedestal and say we want these candidates to run, but they don't really build the foundation to recruit these candidates. And where does a good candidate start? On the local level. The Republican Party has no concerted effort, no coordinated effort to win seats on the local level. All politics is local.
Point.
Let's go.
Excellent point. And that also leads into my next point, that if we don't start with a ground game, if we don't start getting engaged in Trenton, Camden, Patterson, Newark, Jersey City, in a ground game, and if we don't start trying to elect local, I think I was the only local Republican candidate, elected official in Patterson for the 6 years I was serving on the school board. Okay, and I never got support from the Republican Party even then. But yeah, you're right.
Tell you what, I'll tell you what, Chauncey. I'm familiar with Mercer County, my home turf. So there are three municipalities that are nonpartisan: City of Trenton, West Windsor, and Robbinsville. All the other counties are partisan. There is not one elected Republican in any of those other municipalities that aren't nonpartisan.
And that's where we need to start. I think personally because by design, because when you have rhino Democrats and Republicans, they operate behind closed doors and how we're going to share power. You stay out of my suburban communities, and I'll let you control the power in those nonpartisan cities. And it seems like that's the way it's happening all over New Jersey. And as a matter of fact, it looks like that's the philosophy of the National Republican Party. We're only going to
You know what? It sort of looks like that's what happened in the senatorial campaign last year when Mehta was pushed as the candidate, and then he didn't do too well in the campaign. You know, it brings us back to a guy like former Governor Christie, who backed Mehta behind the scenes, and all of Christie's minions, the Palatucci's out of North Jersey, and they went out and they attacked Hirsch Singh, a conservative. Instead of supporting the conservatives, they supported a pharma guy like Mehta. And now there's a certain amount of individuals in that camp that seem to be pressuring Jack Ciattarelli to make Mehta the lieutenant governor. And as far as I'm concerned, from where I sit, that would simply be the kiss of death. Jack Ciattarelli has a long road to hoe to get to be elected governor in this state in November. Murphy has consolidated his power. None of the Democrats are taking shots at Murphy. When's the last time there was a sitting Democrat that was a governor that through January, February, March, April, and May, his own party didn't attack him? Didn't happen this year.
No, it didn't.
And he's flush with money. He's flush with federal COVID money. He's flush with $4 billion that he borrowed, and he's throwing money at everybody, and everybody's happy with the Democrats. So in order to get a guy like Mehta in there, and you know what? Jack Ciattarelli's not my favorite conservative either. He's had to go a long way to try and make people think he's a conservative. His record is not a record of a conservative. And if he doesn't have a good, solid conservative as lieutenant governor who's going to reach some of the other people, you know, for the most part, Mehta and Ciattarelli reach the same people. He needs to get somebody that's going to reach the other people because Republicans are outnumbered nearly 4-1 in this state by Democrats. And he needs to get somebody that's going to reach to get all the Republicans out there. We know that in the state of New Jersey, campaigns for governor are won by the unaffiliated voters.
Independent and unaffiliated, you're right.
And they need to be reached today in order to get Jack across the finish line as governor. Look, I could go on. There are so many, I touched on former Governor Chris Christie, and I got to say that, in his first term as governor, I thought he did a great job. And in his first 2 years of his second term, he did a really good job. And then somewhere along the line, the wheels fell off because his ego took over and he wanted to be president. Well, all the fragments of his machine are still jostling around in New Jersey and playing their own game. And, he's going to try and run for president again. And I'm sure, I don't know if you've heard it before, but maybe this will be the first time. I'm sure that deep down inside, he'd rather not have a Republican governor in New Jersey. Anybody for him to joust with if he wants to run for president in 2024.
Thank you, Dave, for that. For those that are tuning in, you're listening to New Jersey Conservative Talk Radio Show. We're always right, never left. We put God first and politics second. We're honored and blessed to have in the studio today former mayoral candidate from Hamilton Township, David Henderson, sharing his insight on New Jersey Republican Party and the politics transpiring in the state today. We thank you for being on the show. Well, listening to what you said in the first half of the show, we know that the Republican Party is in trouble. We look at the numbers from the primary. Okay, I think that Phil Murphy's numbers were 4-1, 5-1 to Jack's numbers. I cannot see him trying to recover those numbers in 4 or 5 months. He hasn't picked the lieutenant governor, and if he does, she should be a woman, okay, and a woman of color, Hispanic, but that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. You're not going to beat Murphy.